I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an appointment with Mr. Moody. Do we have Ms. Sewell and
No, did not see
Lydia? So Ms. Shire and everybody else?
Lydia Shire or Sally Sewell. I don't see them here. I think Nicholas is here yet.
All right. What can we do for you this evening?
Well, I'm hoping to clear up some of this, I call it misrepresentation of the situation of 185 bond. I've been trying to get you gentlemen on the board out there to be on site, which will be explained a little better. But that hasn't
I've
worked.
been there.
Have you been on the site itself?
Yes. I've been all around that whole area.
Mostly it's the plan, and I would like to learn where this, what I call rumor came up, that Ed Thomas agreed he would take care of that catch basin. I've never heard it in my lifetime. I've been along for 28 years. And up until this meeting, I've never ever heard. And I know John Blackwood said the same thing, and he's not. So I just don't know where it comes from.
State statute.
Well, that's not what was stated.
That's in the letter that I sent to Ms. Laser, and that I believe I
I
copied
believe you
mine
did after the fact,
as the state statute. Yes, Linda.
which I didn't totally understand that. Along with that, you said something about he's got 2 driveways, which are illegal. Well, they've been there, you know, since 66, so I don't understand when those came into play. And again, if that's the case, you can't, you know what I mean? I understand that.
Because it looks like they've done quite a bit of work since last September.
Well,
The town. You've given these meeting plans and everything else in the
we have
timeline.
never received a thing. Nothing. That's been another one of my complaints, there's been no communication. In fact, the day of that meeting, I wasn't invited, Mr. Lighthouse wasn't invited. If I hadn't been there and seen the people in the meeting, I never would have known what was going on. But along with that, the description that they gave me that day is nothing like this plan. Nothing. I've done a mixture of these if you like. That's the most important. The original, these trees were supposed to, this was supposed to be down here. Now they've moved it up here, closer to my leach field. The tank wasn't going to go, now they're upgrading the tank. And the culvert. And now they've encumbered my waterfront property with this overflow. So, and they've got, no water comes down this side of the road, it all comes down this side. And that's a lot of retention thing on this side. And there's still rain down on that side.
Mr. Chairman, Linda Shire from Iowa and Sally Sewell from UPS are here. They were at that meeting in July, as well as the DPW director, Mr. Nichols.
No, it's all right. We got that one here.
Yep. And you guys have that in the packet I gave you. Oh. It's the same drawing.
I noticed in your letter also, it says attached you will find a plan for the swales proposed by our DPW director. That was Lee, right? Did he propose this plan that they drew up?
No, UNH stormwater. It's right on the plan. It says
I know
UNH
that, but this is what it
storm.
says here.
Well, that's who I got it from.
They'll be doing the work.
Oh, I understand that. It just says here that he drew, makes it sound like he drew it up, not drew it, but proposed it.
Which one are you looking at? Oh, that's the...
The second sentence of it.
Toni?
I mean, it doesn't really matter other than he was there that day at that meeting.
So my guess is that the proposal that we have in front of us is basically the one that DES could probably get behind. So
I
you can get
guess,
their permitting and everything else, so this is what we have in front of us. And you have it in front of you. So just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Mhm. And that's what was stated at the meeting, that this is the only thing, but it's the only plan that's been drawn up, so how would the state know, other options?
This is probably the only option that they have, given the fact that it's so close to the lake.
Well, it's not the option that they discussed, and they never discussed putting this on my land. Now, at one of your meetings, they said they didn't want to have to get a permit to take this culvert out, but yet they're going to turn around and cut the road and go across here. The day of that meeting, they had talked about possibly moving this culvert up on this other person's land, which I stayed right out of because that wasn't my issue. They had to bring it up to another person. But obviously, they eliminated that lot and moved it up on the line.
It was there originally, right?
No. This, was supposed to be way down here in this corner, right here, for an overflow. And then the other thing that I've realized is, if they close off this catch basin, don't replace it, where's all that mud and silt gonna go? And you've seen pictures, right, of the mud and the silt that the late eyes just sent? So where's all that gonna go? Into this here, that I'm supposed to mow?
It looks like a retention area.
It is a retention area, but as they described it to you, they grass it over, and all you have to do is mow.
Because
That would be if pure water was going in there.
would it stop the drainage into the driveway?
No, because first of all, the water comes down this side of the road, the lakeside, and crosses over way down here, right into their driveway. It doesn't come down here. I tried to explain that to the draftsman, or whatever his title is, Tim, that day. I said, no water comes down this side. And Mrs. Lighteyes has sent you a video that shows that no water is coming down that side. And I have a video, if I can get you on the site, that I can show you the flow of water across the street. It's just totally, this is the smaller, this is the rain garden that's supposedly going to take the bulk of the water. And you got 390 feet over here, it's not going to get anything. And then all that silt is either going to go in this or continue down here. And Mr. Blackwood said the same thing. The town owns this land over here. If they had terraced it down 2 or 3 levels, the water would have come down, going into the ground as it came, and then eventually go into something like this. And he attempted to do it, I don't know, must have been 10 years ago.
So it says the town hasn't paved or changed the elevation of the road. Is that what you're talking about?
And that's true, because what they're saying is, he hasn't, they can't come back on you because nobody complained. This has been an ongoing complaint since the 70s. It was a court case, the town didn't even own this road. In December of 1981, the court made an order. The people used to own this road. They owned all the way to the lake. So now the town owns it, the town is responsible for it. And this whole quarter-mile section needs work terribly. It's not just the light houses, this whole section, right from 153 on.
Didn't we just do work out there last year?
So here,
Farther out.
Farther up?
quite a bit further out. I mean, if I could get somebody on site, I could walk you up that road and show you there's places, it's all burned up there. Plus, I measured it, it's 1,140 feet from this catch basin to where the water starts coming down. I ran a wheel up there, it was 1140 on one side and 1138 on the other, so that's where it all starts. And then you've also got driveways that dump sand out into the road, and then that all comes down. He winds up in this guy's driveway.
Which one?
Mr. Lighthizer.
And you're across the street, is it taken?
No, I'm the side. I'm up
You
here.
guys are over here?
I'm on the same side.
Right.
That's why I gotta get you out there.
Where does any of this water go into the lake?
That is what?
Any of this water go into the lake or the drainage?
If the drain stays unclogged, it goes right across this culvert, which nobody seemed to know was there, and Lee said it doesn't work. It is, granted, it is 3/4 full, okay? But when I rake off that grate, it creates a whirlpool, and it'll spit that water out into the lake
Yeah,
6 feet.
right.
So it is still functioning. But now the catch basin has failed, and the town was cleaning that up. There was another fellow that was here for a short time that I didn't meet with, but Mr. Lighthizer did, Scott Pike, I think. And he was saying they could do a like for like, which would mean it's there, they could take it out, put another tank in there, fix the culvert, and he was going to come back with transit and shoot some grades and so on. That's never happened. I mean, and it's been, I mean, I can show you the court case when Mr. Thomas was complaining back then, that they kept banking this road, and that was when it was dirt. Now you turn it to pavement, and everything can flow. In fact, on this side of the road, I can show you where they cut a gutter, which all they did was aid it to flow. So you wind up with more down here. And this is all hill. If they cut into there like Mr. Blackburn wanted to do, that water could go in here, terrace down as it came. Because they own, I don't know, 100 feet of that. That's another thing, there's no boundary line shown on this plan. So if I didn't know where I was, like you, looking at it, you would know.
Well, I'm guessing there has to be some type of restrictions for changing grade in so many feet in the lake. Unless I'm incorrect.
I don't know what you're saying.
Getting permitting to change the grading.
You have DES,
For the lake.
AWA, and your DPW director here, so they've all been out there at that meeting with stormwater and.
Maybe we should write them up here to the table.
Absolutely.
We've got another chair. And we too.
I'm in the front row, I'm right here, so.
Just pull your chair up. I apologize.
I'm going to be joining us this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've heard the proposal from Mr. Moody, doesn't agree with this plan. My guess is that this is the only one, since it was done by the Stormwater Center, that DES could possibly permit?
Well, I think it's the only one we would fund with the grant funds. And so the beauty of this is it would need minimal permitting. Larry, I do believe you were on site that day and we did discuss this fire retention.
The discussion for way down here,
Yeah.
they've moved it up here, closer to my leach field, by the way. These trees were to go, and that, you know, there's been no communication, they said they were gonna give us a draft, and then we could have input, and that never happened. In fact, nothing until the meeting of May 25th, April 25th, I didn't know anything about it, and then I didn't receive the plan until I requested it.
Yeah. And so the goal too with the plan was to present it to the town. A lot of this work is going to be happening in the right of way. It's going to be a town implemented plan that we would then be able to find materials to do the work. So,
I'd just like to add one thing. So, you know, this backed up to Jeff Lighthizer asking for some help with his problem. We recognized it was because of Bonnyman Road, so we called Lee. Lee said, I don't know what I can do up there that could possibly be permitted, so we called in Dave Price from DES and the engineers from the Stormwater Center and said, you know, this is a town road problem. Can we get everybody together on site at the same time so that we can find out what is permittable? And that is, at that point, that's when we looked at this and, you know, Larry was there up in his house and saw us there, so he came out. And it's my recollection that you were there for this whole discussion. Talked about, you know, where the culvert was now and why that, you know, being plugged, if it was like for like, they could move it up and make it more effective and drain this swale that was here. As you understand, you know, Bonnyman Road was built very poorly in terms of lake water quality when it was built. And it's a really big challenge for these guys and for everybody who lives on it to try to figure out how to have it not impact the lake in a negative way. There's a lot you just simply can't do to fix it. This was the one that Dave Price thought was permittable, the stormwater engineers thought was possible and cost effective, and that, you know, we said, okay, we've got some money for materials that we can do this. My recollection, and I think Sally and Lee, are that you were there at the time and we all talked about how this was going to be, and it was our understanding that you were on board with it. And that said, this is a plan for the town. This is the town road. So it didn't make sense to have a committee come in and engineer it. It was the Stormwater Center prepared it for the town. Once the town had its input, at that point, felt that it was time to reach out to the people who need to get easements from. That's my recollection of how it worked.
And as far as bioretention bond, we talked about where all those pine cones were, because Jamie measured that, and there weren't going to be, according to him and I, we didn't think we would have to touch any of those trees.
There's 4 trees here, number 1, not 2. Okay? One of them I had said I was going to take down because it's dead, birch tree. And it was right down in here, and no mention was of eliminating that catch basin. No mention. And now they're going to take that out, and I'm kind of curious. I tried to tell him that day that Tim, I can't remember his last name, no water comes down this side of the road. None. And what does goes right back onto my property.
I have to disagree with one thing. Dave Price saying the culvert could be moved was that would only be permitted if the other one was filled in and
He
blocked
didn't
off.
say that day to me.
Yes, he did say
Yes.
that.
Not to me, he didn't.
Okay, maybe you didn't hear it. Maybe it's a
That
lack of
was
communication.
very much understood,
No,
that
because it
that
was,
wouldn't be
what they talked
permitted
about
if the
was
other
an
one was left
overflow,
there.
excuse me, they talked about an overflow that was gonna go over onto the Davidson's property. Lorna, that you know, because you said I can deal with Lorna. So I stayed right out of that because that meant that was another party, I had no jurisdiction over her property. Nothing was ever mentioned about an overflow over my water, my land.
I think the misunderstanding there was we didn't understand where the boundary was, and it's the same site, it's just once it got put down on paper, it was there, not where.
Well, either way,
And that,
I mean,
That
I was
was a
willing to
function of
encumber
the
my
plan
property
meeting.
down here, but I'm not willing to put it up near my leach field. And I'm not willing to have them cut across the road and dump water out into my beach area. And if somebody had come back with a draft, this communication could have gone on a long time ago. And even then, this is stamped November 22nd of last year, and this is the first we're hearing about it. As I stated in one of my letters to you, that just reminiscent of what I watched go on down there with Toll Farm. There was no communication, and things went wacky, and I'm not gonna get involved in it.
So this here was an attempt to solve a problem that wasn't initially on our radar screen. I mean, we knew there were flooding issues here. It was not part of our original grant with AWA, and we came back and looked at it at the request of Jeff. And, you know, I think we, in all earnesty, tried to help solve a problem.
I don't doubt
So,
that. But Jeff also had been coming to the town. Somehow then you came along secondary. All right, I don't know if somebody gave him the name or whatever.
Yeah, who's Jeff? Who's Jeff?
He's the owner, his wife is.
Okay,
is
okay,
one of the
okay.
deed
I'm tracking that, okay.
And he would be here, but he's had a bad accident. I think he wrote a letter telling you he's 100% disabled, he can't drive. He can communicate just fine, but in fact, I talked with him last week and I told him I was on the agenda.
I mean, there's no requirement to implement this plan.
No.
No, but we don't have any money budgeted to hire the engineers that we would need to re-engineer however many feet of that road. That's why we were trying to do it with the available grant money, the labor from the DPW department, try to streamline the permitting, because that can take months and
Right.
cost hundreds of dollars. You know, we were, again, they were trying to address a problem that wasn't on the radar, in as cost-effective a manner as possible and still get the light as there's some relief. But if this plan doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and in the 2019 budget, we can
Discuss it.
decide how much it will cost to engineer it and rebuild the road. But the problem is that at the end of the day, the thing that might work the best will be unpermittable by DES.
Right.
The idea that DES is ever gonna let us dig up that entire road and do it the way you would do it if it wasn't within 24 inches of the lake in some places, it just won't, DES won't allow it. They won't permit it. We won't be allowed to do it the way we could do it in another road that wasn't in a lake. So,
We seem to be a,
whether we do this plan or some variation of this plan and hire an engineer to figure out what else can be done, it still has to get DPS or DES permitting, and I don't know. Obviously, there's engineers out there that do this for a living, and we just have to get a good one that could foresee all the permitting issues there would be.
I can say, talking with Dave Price at that same meeting from DES, I had told him everyone's worried about the lake. I said I was tempted to pull the pavement up, slow the water down, and that way you're getting away from the salt in the lake too. He looked me dead in the eye and said, ain't no way we're probably gonna let you do that.
Oh, really? He said you can't pull up on
No.
top?
Yeah.
I never heard that.
once you touch it, you ain't gonna get permits to put a road back there.
Oh, to put it back down?
No,
No,
this
he
was
won't-
just,
he won't
this
let you
was
take
pulling
it.
it up and
Touch it.
putting it back to gravel and making a gravel road. He said, no way.
No way.
I know
So that ain't even an option.
Nope.
Another thing that you discussed with him was taking down some of that stuff so the water can spill.
Yep.
And he said you could come in there with your grader and do that, because you
Yep.
said I could do that easy.
Yep.
Which it hasn't happened. But he told you you could do it.
Oh, I realize
See,
that.
this is one of the issues. that
We're running out of time on every project we have, so.
I don't doubt that, but this has been a long-going project. This has been years. I don't mean 2 or 3, this has been years. I have scraped that grate off for him numerous times. And what you folks haul out of there is peanuts compared to what Jeff has hauled out of there, and that I've shoveled out of that driveway over the years.
You have to understand What happened years ago was the buddy system. Hey, you're a friend of mine, I'm gonna help you out. State law has cracked down on that. That catch basin per state law, and it's in the letter that Kelley sent, I don't have it off the top of my head, 231 something or 236. Even if it's in our right of way, if we put a catch basin in, it is, or a driveway culvert, it is a homeowner's responsibility to maintain it and or replace it
On what class roads?
on any roads, town roads that we maintain. State law says homeowner is responsible.
Now, when did that get put into place?
I believe it was like 70 something.
Oh, that culvert's been there longer than that. And the other thing is, if you block off that culvert, which, instead of taking it up, as you know, you drive that road, that road's risen that much from that culvert. So when it fails, you're gonna have to take it out of there.
If it collapses,
It's a metal culvert.
but I mean, you got, I don't know how much it'll rot, because last year when we were up there, I saw a woodchuck look at me from the other end. There ain't no water going the road.
No, you're wrong. The water goes through there. I'm the one that scrapes this thing off, and when I do, the water flows. So you haven't been there to do it. Both Jeff and I have emailed trying to get you back out there.
When I first started with the town, I had been up there numerous occasions because Freddie sent me up to show. And we brought the loader up, we got a third of a loader bucket out of that.
Absolutely, I've seen you do it.
So with
But
all
what
due
I'm saying is,
respect,
the
please.
water, where's the water go if it doesn't just disappear into his hot top driveway? When I clean that grate off, I can guarantee you, and if you doubt it, you go put your head at the other end.
Okay, I will.
Because I tell you, it'll shoot water out. Well, I'm not the only one. You can ask 2 or 3 people behind me that have seen it. It'll shoot water out into the lake and clear the bottom. That's because so much pressure has come out.
You do know that that's probably not permissible drainage into a lake.
That's the way it's hooked up.
They don't want that done anymore. That's why they're engineering the new erosion control and everything
Well, what do they
else.
think this is all about?
If they're on the other end, going into the lake, there's gonna be a diverter and everything, and rocks and everything else to catch the silt and everything else that you'll be adding to the lake.
So there goes my 50 feet of waterfront.
Well, no, there goes not dumping materials into the lake that contain anything.
Well, then, Lino, answer me this. Down below, a couple of years ago, they replaced the tanks that had gone at the boat ramp area. Okay? There are 3 drains going right into the lake there. When those things fill up, they drain right out and into the lake. The silt goes to the bottom, which is what the catch basin is all about, right? And then the water drains. And there's 3 different drains right there on that corner going into the lake currently. And that work was just done.
And that was an engineered project through UNH,
And
stormwater.
And permitted.
Yeah, we don't.
So,
It's treated before it goes into the lake.
The sediment settles out in the catch basins.
Yeah, but why couldn't the same thing happen here?
That was the idea.
That's what the detention pond was for.
yeah.
It goes through the grass, it goes through the fabric, it goes through the rock.
So where does all that silt go that you've removed,
At the top of that grassy area.
that I'm supposed to mow? How's that gonna work? Nobody's figured on that one.
The day we discussed it, I told you, it's not a deep hole. It's gonna be something you can run a ride lawnmower.
I can't run a riding lawn going through mud. When that silt winds up there instead of down in the catch basin, how am I gonna run a mower through it?
There's also treatment on the
Spillway.
edges of the spillway,
So
so it's,
some sediment will go in here, some sediment will be in here, and then what's left will end up in here. And then the water that sits in here will infiltrate into the ground. So in theory, not as much water or much water would go into the overflow pipe. It would only be on.
The overflow is for
I
100
mean,
years.
we aren't engineers and, you know, we worked with the stormwater center before and, you know, number one, they're quite affordable, which is a good reason that we are able to get these projects done. And, you know, this is what their engineers recommended, knowing what the problem was and the closest thing that we could come to a fix that would be permittable.
Permittable and you're still under your grant process.
And not super costly because it uses stone and bioretention mix and other materials to enable infiltration into the ground.
I mean, if there was an endless pocket to pay for this, I'm sure there's all kinds of really wonderful engineered things that could go in here, but that's not the reality of this project, so.
I think even if there was an endless supply of money though, for that end of Bonnyman, and maybe there's another section of Bonnyman that's very close to the water, but this particular section is close to the water. Even if there was an endless supply of money, that's kind of my point of, even if we had endless supply of money to bring to bear to the project, there's certain things that just are not gonna be permitted by DES there. And, you know, the days of throwing a culvert where you want it, or a catch basin where, those days are over. We'd be fined, and they order us to take them up, even if
Well,
we
that,
did.
you know, that's not my argument. If you can't do it, you can't do it. I am curious, though, what are they gonna do with that quarter-mile road that is caving in? As you know, you walked it.
Whatever DES allows us to. That's kind of what I'm saying, is we have to find some middle ground here that works for you, the town, and DES. And that's really a slippery slope with these places that are this close to the water. And this was one of the things, we really wanted to address this in a timely manner, and this was one of the things we thought we could get done this year. I assumed that you were on board because you were at that meeting in July. These guys say one conversation took place, you say another one took place. I wasn't there.
I'm not the only one. My wife was there, Neil was there. They tend to agree with me.
So I don't know if it was a misunderstanding. I was not there. So, but this is what we could probably get done this year.
I mean, okay.
We can decide what we can do in another budget with engineering and
hopefully try and get it permitted. If this is a good plan, and it falls under grant process, it's gonna save the taxpayers money.
well, without a maintenance easement though, or a drainage easement, it's not doable.
Oh, okay. So that's what we're waiting on, is a drainage easement?
Mr. Moody would have to give us a drainage easement, and the Lightizers would have to give us a construction and maintenance easement.
Which is what's been discussed in your prior meetings. Okay, and as I said, if somebody had come to us way back, we wouldn't be fighting now. We just told you, no, that's not gonna work.
We're discussing now, fighting. It's time to solve.
So you don't want to do the drainage easement?
I'm not even coming close to it.
Okay.
As I said, it was not what I was told to be that day when I said I would be on board. In fact, I even told Tim that there was no need to have this on this side, this type of swale on this side of the road. And I can prove it to him because the water doesn't come down there. And it's the same thing. So they got the larger bioretention over on my side, and a little dinky rain garden over here that's gonna get the bulk of the water, if they manage to stop it before it gets down here.
I have seen aerial photos in the winter that show, or in the springtime, that show water coming down the road like that and crossing right about there.
It crosses over and comes right back. It crosses way up here by Toll Farm Road. And I've got films on it, you know, I can show it.
So this is a moot point if there's no drainage easement
Yeah.
anyway? So
It's just-
then we just have to go look at it for some other option
Further down the road.
further down the road. So,
That's what it's like.
okay,
That's it.
that's it.
We tried.
Simple as that. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, so get a picture of me. It's the only way you're gonna get educated.
We'll have to do it when it's raining.
I can show you one film.
Yeah, I need to get a better understanding of it.
And
But
that's what I mean, you don't have a concept of what I'm talking about. Nobody talks about it coming from 1,100 feet up the road. You know? But,
okay, we'll
Take under advisement. Thank you.
and look at some other options for This will is great.
John Tucker.
Nothing across the hill, Mark, Valley Snow Club.
Great.
We received funding for the bridge project from the grant aid. Projected the order the bridge in July, be here September timeframe. And we need permission to carry out forward at that time frame with town's permission. This is the Maple Street Bridge.
The problem we have with that is we're gonna have that looked at this year and see whether we need to have other work done to it before.
Yeah, I guess my only question would be, how easy is that to install and take up, and do you have to pay for that?
Pretty easy. It's
Because we don't want you to put
it's
it
small
up
CAD
and then
drawings. What they first
have
want.
to do
Yeah.
anything to take it up.
It's an aluminum bridge.
So it just slides off.
Basically,
Skids or
yeah,
something?
well, you know, we put logs down or something, but it's strap wheels to land.
You'd be able to move it.
Yeah, it's, actually, there's video on the internet of, it's not, this is a 52-foot bridge. There's a video on the internet of a 42-foot bridge or 46-foot bridge, and there's like 16 people carrying it. They brought it out with ATVs, and they built it in the woods, they bolted it all together, and they had like 16 people show up out there, and they just picked it up and carried it like 10 feet at a time and set it down.
So who installs it? Does the state or?
No, we do that, we're the club.
We do that.
The club. The state funds the purchase of the material, and we bolt it together.
And they're doing this probably because it's crossing the highway, it's probably up further,
No.
so is it dangerous, right?
Yeah, they don't.
Oh, yeah, that was,
They're
that was,
ones
No way you're getting that.
that was, no.
Yeah. So this is probably the,
And this bridge over the Maple Street area is the best area for this.
Well, it connects to the trail system, and it, you know, without going, you know, you're down alongside the railroad tracks. The other thing is crossing the railroad tracks, so we only cross the railroad tracks. We cross the railroad tracks where we do, because it's a road there, it's a road crossing, and it's, we can't just cross the railroad tracks willy-nilly.
Right.
And then we can't just cross Route 16 willy-nilly. So it's right there in the 35 mile speed zone, and it's, but you can't get across, that bridge there, you can't get across, because that was the first thing, we said, can we just go kitty corner? Because that's what people are gonna do. They're just gonna go kitty corner across there and up access road to the trail.
Right.
So this is really like, and we thought about, we tried to go across along Route 16 and out, but it was gonna be a 4/10 for a half of a mile through, I mean, that would have been a stopgap for last year. It turned out in snow, we didn't need that much. but-
Right. We're just worried about, because if we need to do any maintenance or anything happens to that bridge, you guys are gonna have to remove it.
Yeah, it's made to be a temporary bridge anyway. I mean, it's not,
It's not
I'm
private.
kind of showed up, it's got the, basically, this is an 8-foot section. Okay, I can unbolt it and unbolted plates, put sections on at a time. Okay, that's how we'll assemble it on site on the Maple Street side. And then we'll pull it, take a line, a heavy line, get it across the bridge, and we'll pull it across the bridge, via the other side of the heavy line, we run the chain like that, and pull it across the bridge. So it'll come off the same way as that on Maple Street.
We were just-
So we're not physically going up the bridge, that's the
Right,
one.
yeah, we can't do it, nobody's on it.
Right.
And this would be off the apron, off of everything, it would be road to
Right,
road,
it's 52 feet.
so it would be, it wouldn't touch.
yeah, it'd be back to where.
It'd be
the
back,
box-
to, his,
Walk wall on either side.
past his block wall on each side,
Just about, actually, just about to the outside.
outside the block wall.
Which is the block, well, he got the blocks that are 8 foot from the bridge itself to the inside of them. And then the outside's about 10 foot, so it would be right in that neighborhood.
Long enough?
I believe so, yeah.
and during the spring
If
and
they're to
summer, it
the
stays
outside
there,
of the
or-
block.
It'd be there year round, and that, you know, it'd be a pedestrian bridge
right?
during the summer, during the way the last few winters have been, during the 11 months of the year that we're not snowboarding.
Yeah, and there would be wood slats in the bottom of
Yes,
this?
it's actually 3/4 inch PT plywood, and then we're gonna run, I don't know if it's stone building, we're gonna stringers across to preserve the plywood. In other words, we run the plywood across, and we run some some sacrificial boards across the top of it, the snowmobiles, because of the
Tracks.
carbides.
And who would be, if somebody got slipped and fell on this, who would be?
NHSA actually has, we have insurance through the
So
NHSA.
well, the club has insurance.
Club has insurance.
And then there's the state policy that covers it because it's on the.
Even during the summer?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Year round.
That's year round.
Okay.
It's not
It
just,
should be for $3,000.
well, that's the state policy.
Yeah.
The cost insurance state policy.
So,
Okay.
Thanks, sir. They're just all over the state, but they're just engineering this.
Well, as long as you guys can remove it when we need it, if we need it removed.
and, you believe that Toni, Toni's a phone.
Have what?
You have my phone number.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so,
If not, I'm sure DPW can move it out of there.
Yeah.
what we can do.
Yeah, it's just, you know.
We even talked about having Crowley put it in with his rotator, right? So we can try it out.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
Thank
And I will contact the town when we have it, we're gonna do Eastern boats and Eastern boats, and we'll parcel some of them, we'll over, and I'll contact the town.
All right.
That's fine.
Right, and we'll be able to move the blocks out of the way, but keep it
I
still.
was like, yeah, it's kind of like to coordinate that effort where it's like the blocks are there and then the bricks.
It's something,
We'd like that too.
Do you
So-
want, if you guys get with me, I'll make sure the loader and some of my guys are there. How wide is this?
6 foot.
6
Well,
foot.
on the inside, the outside might be a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because what I would like to do is I'll move the blocks, you guys can put it up, and then I put the blocks on both sides of that bridge to keep people from walking around it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Nichols, paper bids.
Okay, y'all gonna have to excuse me, I'm in class the past 2 days. For wastewater treatment. So, Kelly, did you do up this spreadsheet here?
No, Toni did.
Okay. I reviewed these at my lunch break. We opened them Monday at 7 o'clock. Mr. Carroll was here when we opened them. And then after I got home from my class today, I wish I had a copy for you guys today. I did a
Yeah.
spreadsheet. No, I got a different spreadsheet. Everybody wanted to make sure we were comparing apples to apples.
So that's why I had, so the bids were due 4 o'clock Friday, and so I wanted Lee to open them and take them under advisement so that he would have time to make sure they're comparing tonnage or yardage, that it comes out that we're comparing the same thing, and so we can price it out, and potentially he can make the recommendation to you on who to award, so we can move forward with that.
So I sat down this morning, or this evening, that's why I was a few minutes late getting in here. For F.R. Carroll, he has 3,115 tons of hot mix and machine work for a total cost, just the hot mix, of $203,565.25. His handwork, he said, would be included, and he put 400 yards of gravel shoulders, a cost of $17,270. Total bid for 218 proposed is $220,835.25. Now, I looked up, he's got on the bottom of it, New Hampshire DOT escalation clause at $485 a ton. I looked that up, I'm trying to become knowledgeable on it. Mr. Carroll, can you explain the escalation clause?
Evening, I'm Frank Carroll. Escalation clause is it's protected for us because of liquid asphalt swells over just like gas and diesel are. as you know, it's been moving around. So New Hampshire has an escalation clause, so when you bid the job, it's at that current price, and they change theirs just once a month. If it goes up, then price of payment might go up a little bit. If it goes down for you folks too. Works both ways, up and down.
So the state of New Hampshire gives a bid list, and the new price comes out on the 15th of every month?
Correct.
And so it fluctuates just a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're not talking, on a project this size, what do you see the swing?
$1 or $2 a ton possibly.
So,
That's your
$3,000,
escalation
$4,000.
clause, which with the escalation clause, like he said, you could see a little bit of a swing in either direction. Next one I have is Can Brothers. They are out of Middleton, a new upstart the past couple of years, I think they are. They bid 3,115 tons of hot mix machine work for a grand total price of $239, or a hot mix price of $239,387. Handwork, they determined to be 20 tons. Total for handwork is $1,800. And 855 yards of gravel shoulders. Total cost of gravel is $15,390 for a total bid of $256,577. The next one we had was GMI at Belmont. He bid tons of hot mix with machine work. He came up with 3,272 tons at $71.30 per ton. No handwork required. 1,185, and he put tons for his gravel instead of yards, so that's 1,185 tons at $24 a ton. Their total bid was $261,733.60. Pike Industries was 3,115 tons of hot mix machine work at $66.90 a ton. Handwork was 100 tons at $125 a ton. And again, 855 tons of gravel shoulders at $21 a ton. And they have two different numbers of 232,598.50 and 238,848.50. And the bid installed with the higher one was.
Who was that?
That was
Pike.
Pike. They didn't put that number at the bottom, Lee. I
Who
did,
did? Oh.
because it was brought to my attention that if you do their math,
Yeah.
it doesn't equal
It didn't add up.
232.
Okay.
It
So-
actually-
So that's Tony's correction.
It actually
I have help.
comes out to 538.
I got a question.
Yes.
And this isn't to do with you, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a formality, I guess. Are these sealed bids? So what is the policy on opening sealed bids? Is it supposed to be at the selectmen's meeting?
No, it's never been required. That's never been required.
Okay, it's a question.
As long as they're sealed up until the end of the bid,
Okay.
period.
I'm just,
Nobody gets opened in advance.
the sewer one that we had to open,
Because Mike Susie opened it when he got it. So that one got thrown out, and then we
I'm
redid it.
just-
So I brought it directly to you because it's not as confusing as this. It was a per gallon with labs included.
Right.
This is much more confusing because if they bid tons versus yards, I want to make sure that we had a chance.
I just wanted to make sure, I guess I was confused, I didn't know if we had to open them up at selectmen's meetings, if there was a policy on that, that's my question.
It's never been a requirement, but if you, I
Nope,
mean,
as long
No,
as,
it's just a
as
question.
long as it's opened after the bidding process.
yes,
Okay.
and it was
All right.
opened publicly.
Yep.
Mr.
Yeah,
Carroll was
Mr.
the
Carroll
only one that
was there all the way
attended.
over.
Okay. Just for my,
And R&D, I believe everybody was invited to
Yeah,
They were
because
called and told.
some are in tons, some are in yards, some are in.
And I'll get to that. R&D paving, they're at Franklin. They came up with 3,115 tons of hot mix machine work at $65.96 per ton. Handwork, they figured 20 tons at $120 a ton, and 855 tons of gravel shoulders, $30 a ton. Total bid of $233,515 and 40 cents. And again, I apologize, my printer wasn't working, so in my spreadsheet, I broke it all out between tons and the yardage equivalent.
See it.
All right, we'll give this a shot. Okay, F.R. Carroll, R&D, Pike, and Can Brothers all came up with the same tonnage for the hot mix. And the cost per ton, F.R. Carroll was $65.35 a ton.
Yep.
R&D was $65.96 a ton.
Yep.
Pike was $66.90.
Yep.
Can Brothers was $76.99. And GMI was $71.30 a ton.
So we have Can Brothers is 76.85
Yeah.
for spreadsheet, not 76.99. Just verify that.
And can you explain to us the difference between yards and tons in case anybody has any questions in the audience?
It depends on what kind of material you're working with, where we're dealing with 3/4 inch gravel or gravel shoulders. It's usually about 1.3 tons per yard. So with the gravel, F.R. Carroll quoted
43.18 a yard.
well, let's see, we quoted yards, right?
400 yards.
He went 400 yards. Yeah, if you multiply that by 1.3, that's 520 tons of gravel. That figured out to be 43.18 per ton. And no handwork required. R&D was, they said 855 tons of gravel, which is 658 yards. They were getting $30 a ton, which would be $39 per yard. Handwork tonnage was 20. You get tons at 120 per ton. Who was the next one? Our pipe was, again, they quoted 855 tons, which is 658 yards. They quoted $21 per ton, which is $27.30 per yard. Can Brothers, I don't know where they got this one, but they quoted 1,111.5 tons, which was 855 yards of gravel. I'm wondering if they put 855 and they were figuring tons if you base it off the other estimates. If that's not the case and they really had 855 yards, that would be $13.85 a ton, $18 a yard. Again, $20 for handwork, $90 per ton. And GMI for gravel was 1,185 tons, which figured out to be 911.54 yards. Their cost per ton was $24, and their cost per yard was $31. And there another one, no handwork.
So do you have a recommendation?
Honestly, I'm looking at the prices and the past experiences. Currently, right now, the best I could come up with is I'm tied between FR Carroll and R&D. Those are the two lowest. It makes me a little nervous. Frank's a little bit lower on his cost per ton for the hot mix by 31 cents. Seems, based on all the other estimates, it seems a little low on the tonnage for gravel.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question too.
Like I said, four of them were dead on for the tons of hot mix. 1, 2, 3 of them were dead on for tons of gravel. We've used both of them before. I mean, Frank did High Street, he did Rhymes Road, he did St. Anthony's. We've used R&D the past 2 years. They did.
What would be the reason for using less gravel?
I don't know, because you have to bring the shoulders up even with the edge of the road, and I specified 2-foot shoulders.
So if you want to award to the lowest potential bidder, then he's sitting right here. You tell him you have to hold the yardage. If it goes to more, you can't have it. The only escalator allowed in here would be the liquid asphalt rate. And if it's between $1 and $2 per ton, you said, is the swing usually. I mean, even at $2 a ton for 3,115 ton, you're talking about $6,230, another $6,230. That's still $7,000, $6,000, $7,000 lower than the next lowest bidder. I mean, $6,000 in a $220,000 bid isn't a lot of money, but all other things being equal, if he's okay with, we usually go with low bid.
Yes, we,
Ask the chairman.
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, we do a lot of shoulder work all the time. We just did some top and burn and all over. We're pretty good at it as far as estimating, and I'm willing to say that you won't be over 400 yards. In your bid, it says, look at it, you have to go out and determine your quantities yourself. We measured, I went out with Lee and measured both the roads with Joe. And looking at it, yeah, it says in bid 2-foot shoulder, you're not gonna get that in all the places up there.
All right.
It's just not there, road-wise.
Well, yeah,
I'm comfortable with the 400 yards.
All right.
I was going to say, it does say 2-foot gravel shoulders where possible.
So your recommendation is?
I'd have to go, we've always gone lowest bidder in the past, so that would be Frank.
Motion to accept FR Carroll as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Lee, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
We can get you again, you know.
Yes. And I saw on the agenda, the Verizon thing.
Yeah, do you want to just table that for temporary?
Yeah, if we can table the Verizon thing, because I'd like to get with.
You're valuable.
Chief Insurer on that. Yep. So we'll bring it for next meeting.
That would be excellent. Thank you.
No, thank you.
We should be outside with John.
Thank you.
Okay. The other thing should have been compost and trail.
The trailer, yeah.
And again, I apologize, my quotes for the trailer are in the office, but we have them here.
We have one.
Is that what that is?
Yes.
Anybody,
You should have had two. Yes. You've got this quote.
11
And then the second page is the other quote.
Yep.
This is a dump trailer for the transfer station. Right now, Warren's using, I think he said it's a 80-something, it's a utility trailer is all it is. That's what he uses to haul the crushed cans down to Harding. And he's got a metal cage and everything on it. Seth just did some welding on the spring hangers and everything on this, but the problem with hauling the aluminum cans is when they fill it up, A, it doesn't, so they have to get in there and shovel it out. And especially in the winter, you know, old beer and soda and everything else freezes up, so they're in there chipping it. The other issue they have is every time they go down the road, that thing's overweight. And if they get stopped, that's a nice little ticket. Seth quoted these out. This would accept the weight that they use to haul it. I think it's 9,000 pounds. Seth was looking at going through, for the one through Rochester truck, oh, it's 14,000 GBW. And he billed, you can extend the siding custom like they have on the other one. But my biggest concern is going down the road with that older trailer, overweight. Not only is it a big fine, but it's extremely dangerous. You overweight a trailer and start slaying.
what are they weighing in at down there? How much overweight have they been going over?
I'd have to get that for you, but they're going over by, I would say, at least 1,000 or better.
So where is this budgeted in the 2018
That's the
budget?
thing, I just got hit with this, it's not, we would have to look at the CRF.
The CRF is for the facility or heavy equipment. This doesn't qualify.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the operating budget,
Oh,
and
no.
I don't think he has that kind of wiggle room in his operating budget, but I looked at the CRFs, and there's one for the facility and one that clearly says heavy equipment, and I mean, we can try pinging the trustees of trust funds, but I wouldn't even try it. I mean, a utility trailer isn't heavy
I know
equipment.
last year, the year before, they were gonna, or they went to the trustees about the compactors and stuff that they were gonna put over there. And they were gonna let Scott do the improvements with those. So I don't know if you want to, he did not budget for this.
So, two things. A, we need to budget for the stuff he needs.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, we need to change the purpose on that capital reserve fund to just equipment at the transfer station from heavy equipment, and define more clearly that it encompasses,
No.
can encompass other equipment.
Now, my question on that, is that done through Warner
Yes.
to
Yes.
change wording? Okay.
Yeah, it has to go to a vote of the
To
people.
change the purpose of it.
So what's the difference between this and the heavy equipment?
It's just equipment, pretty much. It's heavy equipment. When they wrote a lot of these warrants, because a couple of years ago, we redid one of the highway ones, I can't remember what it was. They just said heavy equipment, and they figured it covered everything. And then as regimes change and everything, heavy equipment becomes just that. Backhoes, loaders, graders. You know, a 14,000 or 1,000-pound trailer is not heavy equipment. You're not talking a tractor trailer.
It's not really a regime change, it's what the Department of Revenue.
DRA
So
looks at,
DRA looks at the purposes of a capital reserve fund, and they want you to be specific enough that you're not open-ended, but they want you to not be so specific that, you know, and I would say that this would be one that the purpose probably, kind of like the bridge one.
Right.
There was bridge construction only. Well, you know, when you're gonna construct a bridge, you're gonna need engineering, you're gonna need studies, you're gonna need permitting, you know, so to say bridge construction limits you in planning and.
Right.
How often is he going down?
I believe they go down once a month.
And is this the one they have now, currently safe for the road?
Seth just did the welding on it to keep it safe for the road.
So it's roadworthy and safe for now.
So could we require them to go twice a month so it's not overloaded because if we're saving it all for
Yeah.
once a month, let's not be unsafe about it, but
Right.
let's double the trips or triple the trips even if they went once a week.
Okay.
If it keeps the load from being overloaded, at least until we can budget properly
Right.
for something that's carries more of a load and
Right.
is safer.
Well, I told him I'd bring it up.
Yeah, and I think we look at budgeting for 2019 plus changing the purpose of the capital, because I'm sure there's other equipment down there that, and then we should budget to put enough in the capital reserve fund each year to kind of fund the CIP going out.
Okay, so, thank you. The last thing I have is no written policy or anything, because that's what I'm trying to develop. I have had a lot of people in town approach me about the leafy compost down at the transfer station. We have a lot of residents that are interested.
Yep.
Warren is getting overrun with it, and he would like to start getting rid of it. I actually have, I believe, 4 webinars coming up on composting at a transfer station and all that. But what I would like to do is get the board's ideas and opinions on what you would like to see in that. Me and Kelley and Warren have talked about it a little bit. My number one thing is transfer station employees do nothing. If you want compost, your hands up. They don't have time to scale. They don't have time to load with equipment. If you want, and compost is reasonably light. If you want compost and stuff for your garden, it's hand shovel only.
Can we
Just
do it
like
like we
the
do
sand.
with the personal sand?
Yep.
Just limit a truckload, or
And we can either A, give it away, or we can set up a fee schedule like a 4x8 pickup truck box is $25 a load with 5-gallon buckets, $1 a bucket, $2 a bucket, or whatever. We're not gonna get rich off compost, but it would also help the residents out for their gardens and.
But it takes, the guys rotate that compost pile in there, so there's
Oh, yeah.
labor inside that.
Yep. The pile he's got now is, I guess, 4 or 5 years old, and he has to rotate that, I think, every 2 weeks. When you pull in there, you go down to the fire and those long lines, that back line is a few years old. He rolls that.
Yeah.
That front line is all the new stuff. And then when this is ready, he pushes it out of way, that front pile becomes a back pile, and then everybody starts putting in front, so you're always.
There's some nice stuff there.
Yes. And like I said, he's running out of room, because I told him worst comes to worst, we could probably all go to the town garage to store it, but I'd rather just give it, like I said, I've had several individuals in Lawrence that he's had quite a few that are interested in taking
are
it.
the people that are interested in taking it generally the people that contribute to it?
That, I don't know.
'Cause
I
I mean,
would
it-
assume.
I mean, just my opinion, but if people are contributing their leaves and their materials and that's helping build that compost pile, should we really charge them to get it back after we ferment it for 3 years and then we're gonna charge them for it? Like if they're contributing the material and we're just stockpiling it and turning it over and making good compost out of it,
Now, if you want to give it away, we can do the same thing as the sand.
Yeah.
55 gallon per trip.
You can limit it, and then you can section it off as well, and then fill it when it goes
Yeah.
down.
do you have enough interest in it right now that you could get rid of enough of it to give Warren the room he needs?
I believe so, because he said a lot of people this year have been coming in. And I know I got one gentleman seasonal that started on me last fall, and I know he's back in town because he started leaving me messages again.
So how often do we, how labor intensive is it? How often is he turning the pile? Once a week, once a month?
I believe it's like once a month, once every couple months.
More in the fall when the leaves are coming in? Is it more labor intensive?
No,
then?
because the leaves that are coming in are gonna sit for 6 to 8 months before you even touch them. There's no sense flipping over dry leaves. You gotta let the bottom start rotting, and then you flip them. And you gotta keep flipping them, because anything that rots, you get the heat in it too.
I mean, if it's not labor intensive for them and we can give it back to the residents who contributed.
I was gonna say, you talk about labor, but that's something, because we accept leafing materials, that's something they have to do by law for the landfill, is keep rotating it.
And it seems like it would be more labor intensive for the guys to keep up with cashing people out at the shed too. I mean, they have a lot of stuff going on down there already. Somebody has to keep going back and checking and.
So why don't we put together a policy that is similar to the sand?
Okay.
And it would be for residents only, or
Yes.
sticker holders only.
I was gonna say, you can't get in the transfer station with that.
And then you're okay with it being no charge
Yeah, I think so.
and just try to share it with every, you know. That way, if we limit the amount to everybody could get, you know,
What-
some people might not get as much as they want, but everybody could get a little bit.
Do we have an idea what other towns are doing as far as?
I do not, I could put a message out on PW that, but I know there are towns that I would sell it if they're like, just to get rid of it. Because like I said, if you're not getting rid of it somehow, then all you're doing is stockpiling it, and you can only spread so much on your own property before you run out of room.
We gave it away the last time I lived
If
in.
you
Similar
would,
to that, there was a limit on how much you could take.
if you would like, I'll do a policy similar to the old sand policy. I mean, the new sand policy. And I will also put out a message to the other towns on TWNet, so I can come with a draft policy next meeting. And I'll come with the statistics on how many towns are doing it and what they're doing, either they're selling it or they're giving it a grade.
Sounds like a plan.
More sand policy and anything else for me?
That was the last I had for you.
I'm going to do my homework before my test tomorrow. Speaking of which, me and Joe Gore test tomorrow for the wastewater license.
Good luck.
Study hard. Oh, yes. Public comment one?
On that, up there on Wyman Road, have you three been up there and looked at that road where they're having a problem?
Not yet, I haven't come up there yet.
Then I would suggest going up and looking at it, and look at the road and how it's shaped. Water's gonna come down that roadway, and it's gonna head, and that's where you wanna put that intention point. Now, if you go further up the road, maybe you can make some cutoffs, so the water won't get started so fast, and slow it down. And it can run out into the woods, and it will not go in the lake. Some of this stuff is a little bit phony, because we put winter sand on that road in the wintertime, and guess where that salt goes? Into that lake. So, you know, there's some common sense gotta be applied. DES is not as smart as they like to have people think they are. That's my opinion on that roadway.
Thanks, John. Anything else?
No, just comment, I'll wait till the next one.
I think Rose was next.
Rose, hold on.
Could you explain to me what unscheduled matters is first? On that comment, it says unscheduled matters and public comment, but then it says agenda items. Could you make that more clear?
Public comment one, limited 3 minutes to agenda items.
No, I meant the unscheduled matters. What is that? What are you referring to?
In case we have unscheduled matters before public comment.
Okay, and I have two things. One, can you open a window, because we can't breathe over here?
I think they turned the AC off because they can't hear it.
I understand, but can we open a window so we can at least breathe?
Probably open the door.
And then I wanted to talk about the snowmobile club, just a small, if you guys are gonna do any work on it or have the bridge moved after you do this with the snowmobile club, can we have some fair, reasonable notice? Because I'm already having a problem with getting my business people in to our property because the bridge is closed. And if they're moving a bridge in the middle of the day when I'm open, it's gonna create a problem unless I plan for it ahead of time. So if you could just give us a heads up like a couple days beforehand, it would be really good, because even the people doing bids have been interrupting our business, so it would be really nice if we could get a heads up. Thank you.
If you do, excuse me, if you take Johnny up on that request, I'd like to be there. I really think I can have some input you know, and walk you right up and down that road.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Something's behind. I just have a quick question relative to the road and Bodmin Road and all the difficulties with that. Why is the state of New Hampshire, why would they object to that road being, the asphalt being removed and it going back to a gravel road? I know clearly you said that can't happen, but I'd like to know why that position is there. Does anybody know?
Probably try to find out for you.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, it would make that land pervious again. I mean, it would solve a lot of issues on that road. If you go and take Larry up on his offer, you know, I think you have to, as Joan was saying, go down that road. I mean, there are many areas where you're going to have very similar problems. You can step down on the beach and look up. I mean, years ago, there were many trees there. The trees were all unfortunately killed because of the snow plows in the winter, you know, hitting them. And now it is all undermining, and the road kind of goes right down. You see how it just slopes down. It's all, you know, breaking down underneath. And when, you know, big trucks go by, the sand trucks particularly, or gravel trucks, I mean, my place shakes, you know, so it really is doing a number there. And I just think it'd be great if it could go back to gravel or dirt or...
You know, I would suggest maybe without being forgotten, it's called TES, maybe yourself, and just ask them, because I'd be interested to know too, but we could definitely look into it as well.
Exactly, because I just think it would solve so many, won't solve the whole problem, believe me, there's issues there, but it might alleviate some of this runoff, and, you know, if some of it at least can go back into the ground. I just didn't understand, you know, why. I'll find out. I mean, I have no problem. DES's, they know who I am.
Thank you. Hold on, John.
Lino? I'm sorry, can she identify herself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Pat Chasen. I live on Waterman Road. I'm about 3 places down from 4.
Ralph?
Thank you.
I was just thinking about that lower catch basin that's existing now, and I'm curious about the size of it. I'm curious about if the bottom of it is set into bank run gravel or permeable soils. Why couldn't you put in a catch basin like a dry well tile and oversize it and load it up with erosion stone? If it's in the bank run gravel, which is permeable soils, it should slow it down, kind of retain it in that big tub of rock, and perk slowly down through the bank run gravel without any overflow. If you oversize it, you want to make sure you put in erosion cloth under and around the whole sides of it, but that's one workable best management practice. It's like an infiltration trench, and you'll hear AWWA advocate those all the time. So that's one method that may solve a big problem.
Thank you. John?
The problem is going back to a gravel road. You're gonna have a dust problem. And where's the dust gonna go? Into your lake. And you are gonna have an erosion problem with gravel roads.
That could
Worse than what you've got now with tar.
Right.
So that theory you got, that'd be the worst thing you could do is make that a dirt road. Spring of the year, it's gonna be mud.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Why is it gonna be mud? Because of the base? The lack of?
If you wanna put a foot of gravel on it, rebuild it. But I'd leave it tar and worry about the drainage part.
Well, part of the problem with the road is how narrow it is and how much snow they have to move during the winter. You talk to the guys that do the plowing, they hate that road. There's no place to put the snow. You're up against a rock wall and a berm 2 feet on one side, the non-lake side, and as you go down during the wintertime, you're just pushing the sand and salt from the previous storm down the bank and into the lake.
Well, it's gonna do the same thing in the wintertime, with this dirt road and all.
I agree, but I think there's an alternative path to the same direction between the boat ramp and Point Road. That's the part of Bonnyman Road we're talking about, right? But there's an alternative path that's been available for years and years and years and years, and it's 50 feet wide. Okay, it's called Toll Farm Road. Goes up the hill at the boat ramp and takes a right and comes out at Point Road. right? If you took, and I don't think it's any longer to plow, same number of feet long, within 100 feet probably, but it'll take the whole thing away from the lake. And if we're concerned about putting anything into the lake, the thing is, don't put it near the lake.
Okay, thank you, and your name is?
I'm sorry, Neil Road, Waterman Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil
Neil,
Rowe, R-O-W-E.
thank you. The bridge assessments?
So the deadline for the bridge RFQs came in, and I received 6 proposals. I evaluated the proposals against the RFQ. I do have to just remind the board, since we did an RFQ rather than RFP, there's a little bit of difference. A request for qualifications does not include a price. And that is a requirement for any state aid bridge money for this state DOT. You have to do a qualification-based RFQ process rather than a RFP or a request for bid. So I evaluated the 6 companies that proposed, and one has to be disqualified because one of the requirements was that they provide their certificates of insurance, and his index says it's included and it is not, and it was not included in any of the 4 copies I requested. I have the 6 companies that bid were CLD Fuss and O'Neill from Manchester, New Hampshire, Dubois and King from Laconia, New Hampshire, HEB Engineering from North Conway, New Hampshire, Hoyle Tanner and Associates from Manchester, New Hampshire, Kleinfelder from Manchester, New Hampshire, which used to be SEA, which have done our last 2 bridges. They did a bridge for us over Brook, I believe in 1998, and they did one other bridge for us. I believe it was the other Maple Street Bridge in 2007, 9, I can't remember. And then TEC Engineering, which is the engineering corporation. They're out of Hampton, New Hampshire. Dubois and King is the one that did not provide their certificate of insurance, so they've been disqualified. My recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, the next step would be for you to interview and select your top 2 or 3 firms, and then open negotiation with number 1 on cost. If you cannot agree on cost, you can move on to your second choice, but you can never go back to your first choice. So I prepared a packet for each of you so you can look at the qualifying factors were completion date, because we wanted this done by the budget cycle, experienced engineers / staff, understanding of scope, approach of project timeline management, performance and references, understanding funding and decision making for a small town, and then the certificate of insurance. So I assigned a number scale to each item. If you look at the total at the end, HEB Engineering came out on top. The second was TEC Engineering, which is the engineering corporation, and then the third would be Hoyle and Tanner. So my recommendation would be that the board try to set up interviews at a work session next week so that we can award it at your 6/27 meeting. The work session would be a public meeting, but it would not be a public hearing, and my recommendation is we schedule like half hour. I have the hard copy proposals that you guys can take a look at for the top 2 or 3, however many you want to rate. I suggest you take those and peruse them a little bit, and then we interview, maybe give each company a half hour, 15 minutes to do a presentation, and 15 minutes for you guys to ask questions. You rank them in order, and then we open negotiations on cost with your number 1 choice. And so what I'm looking from you guys is whether you want to interview the top 2 or 3, and then days and times next week that you might be available to do that, so that I can try to put that together with the engineering companies. I did check at least 2 references for each. I tried to pick a town that was similar in size to ours if they had done work for a similar sized town.
So SEA didn't come in the top?
I mean, they're 4th. The biggest problem with Kleinfelder was that they can't finish the project until November 27th. So, I mean, you could choose to interview them and ask if they can do better than that, but they really fell down. I mean, their understanding of the scope, clearly because they worked in this town, their approach, clearly because they worked in this town, but under timeline and completion date, they lost a ton of points because it's so late. They were by far the latest, and November 27th is really pushing it for our budget cycle. HEB Engineering, you know, was the top ranked one because they can get it done by the end of August. And they have a very unique approach, so they've already done for free about 75% of the bridge assessment for us.
Well, why don't we do the top 3 then?
So that would be HEB,
Dubois and Tanner?
no, not
sorry.
Dubois. HEB,
CLD, HEB, and Hoyle?
HEB, second would be TEC, and then the third would be Hoyle and Tanner. And then can you guys agree on a couple of days next week, a couple of times next week? I know Vin generally has Mondays off, but I don't know if he's still doing that. You have no days off?
Thursday? Morning?
Yeah, that could work. Yes, Thursday.
Connie?
Okay.
10 o'clock?
10, 10:30, and 11?
10 to 12.
You want to give them like a half hour each?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Do you need a motion for that?
No. If you guys are all in agreement with that, and if you want to step in my office and grab those 3 hard copies, it'll give you a chance to take a look at what they presented, and I'll write up some generic questions, but you know, if you guys have specific ones.
I'll write a couple.
Okay.
This is very well done, Kelly.
Yes, thank you.
Very understandable, thank you.
It's a lot of work too, putting these together with
Yes.
that matrix.
Well, I just want to make sure
Everybody was the same.
we gave a numerical value to it, and then the chips fell where they may.
Great East Lake Improvement Association use of Wheats Beach.
So they make a request every year to have their annual meeting, and they invite you guys as well, so they wanted you to know that when it was going to be. And
It is July 7th in the morning. I'll be working, so if you guys want to attend.
so I've already notified Parks and Rec, and did we tell the DPW too? I think they were cutting trees in that area last year, so I try to notify them so that they know that they're going to be using it and they don't interfere with their festivities.
No, Wheats Beach is the town beach.
No,
Where's Wheats Beach?
isn't it, this week's on Great East?
Great East.
On North Shore.
Yep.
Just making sure.
And I'm not texting, I'm just entering stuff into my calendar, just so people don't think.
Get in as we can get this done and up and running so we can have for the next budget cycle.
Well, the reason I want you to do it next week for the work session is so that we can award it for the 27th,
Yes.
because a lot of their timelines presuppose you awarding it on the 27th, giving them the notice to proceed on the 29th, so
Perfect.
I don't want to fall behind.
Capital reserve expenditures. Technology fund, 4125 for computer systems.
Yeah, we replaced the code enforcement officers and the welfare system downstairs, and we were just here today to do finance and the selectman's assistant, and the voter checklist laptop got replaced.
And this has all been budgeted for?
Yes,
Great.
out of the technology capital reserve fund.
Motion to accept as presented out of technology fund, expense account 0149399944.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any correspondence? No? Public comment too?
Could I ask how the hiring of the code enforcement officer replacement is going? Because it was advertised, and then there was no silence. So.
Already employed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When was that on?
Started the Tuesday after Memorial Day.
Yeah.
What was that,
Okay.
28th? It was done in non-public session as the hiring of a public employee about 3 weeks before that.
Okay.
Um,
So who is it?
So the building inspector, co-code enforcement, deputy health officer is Russell Bookholtz, Bookholtz. He lives in town. He's, was the assistant building inspector in Rye for a number of years. And, was the building inspector for Nottingham until 3 weeks ago.
All set, Tom?
Yep.
Next.
Pat Jason again. Kelley, I sent you an email recently on the landlocked piece of property that the town owns, and wondering if you're doing anything
No.
following up. So the concern I have and what I shared with Kelley in that email is the town's property is landlocked now because of a resident in the Toll Farm community. It's not the Toll Farm community itself this time, it's a resident. There's the property owned by the town that is landlocked, that eventually will go up for auction. And my concern, and there is an access road that, there's another property in there that a person owns, and they have a trailer on it with a porch around it. It's not in the pictures in the town's records, this particular piece of property. But that property is also landlocked. There's a woman that lives in there, she goes up with her grandchildren. The police couldn't get in there for 911 call. Fire department can't get in there. She cannot have her sanitation facilities pumped out because they can't get a truck in there. My concern is that because this is blocked off, firstly, it's the area that the town has always paid Toll Farm for road maintenance. And this road has never been maintained by them. But the person who now owns the land that is blocking it off, and he's now blocking off the access road saying it's his. When I look at the town maps, it does look like there's an overlap there. But the town's attorney, Rick Sager, is the same attorney who represented the buyer of that piece of property. There is something called an easement by necessity that I think the town needs to get so that not only would this woman benefit by it, but the town, when it does put the property up for auction, might have somebody interested in it other than the guy who's blocked it off. So I don't know where that's at, but I do think Rick Sager was involved in both taking the lot, the second lot he was involved in redeeding it back to an owner who caught up on their taxes. But it's been openly used since 1967. Each of the deeds, including the town's deed, says on a proposed road, as many of the deeds did way back when. And so I don't know what this gentleman's motive is to block that road off, but I do see it as a danger, not for the town, because there's nothing on the town property, but for the person that was in. I was hoping that the police chief was going to stay here. You know, I don't know what the position is when it's primary access. I know if it's secondary access, it becomes a civil case, but you know, if you go home tonight, your road is blocked off, you don't want to hear that it's civil and find a lawyer. You want to get home. You know, you want the police to be able to get there if you put in a 911 call. So I just thought perhaps Rick Sager was the right person because he was involved in both sides of this.
Okay.
And I have pictures, I have a map if, you know, you wanted to see that, but, you know, I think that's pretty much the gist of what's going on. There are pictures of the access road, pictures of it blocked off, and I've got the map showing the overlay.
Okay.
But this gentleman bought, I believe, in 1996, so even that, it's more than 20 years that, you know. So I don't know, Kelly, I don't know what your position is on this. I know you're not gonna pay them the $300 fee this year.
We only paid 1 year.
Yeah, and it only
I'm
should have
not-
been $20, by the way. That's what they charge for unimproved lots. The town's the only one that could charge $300 for
Well, because we
unimproved
thought
lot.
the trailer was on our property, there was a
trailer's
misunderstanding, there was a
long gone.
mix-up on the assessing cards.
Right.
The board had already voted not to pay the fee for as long as it's blocked off, and frankly, because there is no building on our property, I can't make, in good conscience, a recommendation that we spend the kind of legal funds we would have to spend to fight Mr. Leone. I'm not gonna recommend auctioning it for now anyway. And I don't see selling it, we can't sell it to Mr. Leone, and I would not ever recommend that, because I don't think that blocking it off so that you're the only one interested in it is fair play. But again, I can't, because there is no property in it, I strongly suggest that the woman who does own the camper,
It's a real
like
trailer. It's a
cover-
real trailer.
Is it a trailer? Because it
It's
looks
not
like a
the-
camper with
Oh, no,
a
that's long gone.
roof
See,
over it.
That's what used to belong to the town. She's got, it is a trailer, but there's a nice deck built all around it, and this, you know.
Frankly, with the litigation that's gone on up there,
Mhm.
I'm not interested in getting the town involved in that litigation. But if I were her, I certainly would civilly.
Well, I understand, but you know, that is not inexpensive either.
No,
And this
but-
is not a family that
But it's a
has-
private road and the town,
But it's not. It's a road that they have prescriptive rights to use.
all those roads in Toll Farm, from my understanding of the previous litigation, are private roads.
You are wrong, okay? There's never been litigation on the roads. There's been a lot of litigation on the beach area. There's been other litigation. If you read that very lengthy letter that I sent way back when, there's a whole section on the road, not just the roads, but on who owns things in there. The Toll Farm Community Corporation, currently in existence, went into existence in 1993.
I read your letter.
Mhm.
I
And
read
it's a
all
totally
30
different
pages of it.
corporation.
I understand, but
So-
again, there's the benefit to the rest of the residents of town at $175 an hour for a full title search, and then to take him to court is, I can't recommend that.
I understand. I mean, but I do.
I don't think it's right, I don't like it, I don't think it's fair, I don't like that they're blocking off other people, but that's just my personal opinion, and I don't think it's a matter that the town attorney can get involved in at $175 an hour.
Well,
It's not gonna be cheap.
just for information purposes, I have every single deed that goes back to 1967, so you could save him doing all of the looking up of the deeds. There is a thing, as I said, called, you know, easement by necessity. Attorney Sager should be able to do that almost, it's a very simple process for an attorney. So
It's up to
you
the
might
board of
just
selectmen. I don't
talk
have
to
a
him.
budget.
We'll take under advisement.
Yeah, and just talk to him, is all I'm
Thank you.
saying, get some information.
My complaint on that, on that property up there for a long time has been, the town has paid more than one other year. And I had,
Which one? Well, you got it.
on the
The
property
tax
there,
acquired property.
and I had notified Kelley last year saying, she said the reason they would pay is because they keep it open. They don't keep it open. I sent her pictures in the winter showing that it was plowed in. And I tried to tell her that there was no property, there's no building on that property. And even with Teresa, they paid, the town was paying on, I think, the second lot in there at the time. And so this is going on, so we say 200, then 300, next thing you know, you're up to 800, 1,000, and these guys keep sending a bill. They weren't, in their own paperwork, they said that they don't bill for lots that have nothing on it.
So I just want to make sure that we're clear. Are you talking about something that, are you talking about the, we're not paying the $300 that,
But we're not paying it now, but
paying
we
it now.
have paid it.
we're not paying it now?
Right, and that's only because I sent that picture that you made the comment, looks pretty deliberate. Well, they did the same thing with the plowing,
So it's,
you know, and now for whatever reason, Toll Farm thought they owned that road, the access to those lots, and they're not fighting this guy. I have no idea.
okay.
But another thing, Toll Farm is not a 501(c) or whatever they
Yeah,
call
we
it.
don't get involved with their corporation or anything like that.
Right, but they're just a voluntary corporation. It's not like, they didn't even get formed until 1957, and 90% of those lots were sold before that.
Okay.
Then they
Thank
went
you.
to funk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then they were, all right.
Annette Perry, 21 Brewster Road, formerly 4 Maple Street, which is still on the same road. The bridge assessment, is that to take down the bridge of Maple Street and not put it back up? Or does that include to put the bridge back up? I know the Snowmobile Club, because now it's inconvenient, they care about putting that temporary one up. But, be quick about it. I've worked on this a long time ago, I know. Now that it's inconvenient, now they care. 5 years ago when I asked the members, they didn't give a crap. But, is that the bridge assessment, is that to just take it down and not put it back up? Or is it just to, is it everything? The
That's
bridge
what the
assessment,
assessment would be for.
Yes.
for everything?
The
Should we build
engineers
it?
will use their expertise, they have structural engineers, hydraulic, erosion control, there's all kinds of specialists. They will go out and evaluate all 7 of the town's bridges and make their recommendations on replacement, repairs, maintenance. So we have 7 bridges, 5 are not on the red list, we'd like to keep them off. They have no weight limits. We have 2 on the red list, 1 closed, 1 with a weight limit. That's also historic and shared with Acton, Maine.
I know
So,
that one. I know that
right,
one.
so they're going to go, we are not weighing in on what we want. We are asking them, that was the whole point of this. They're going to assess each bridge and tell us.
I just want to
What-
make it sure out there that Maple Street Bridge will not be forgotten and taken down and then not be repaired until 2026, which I know that's when the funds will be available. And then it will get pushed back to 2020, 30 or whatever, because that's how it goes. And it's been like that for some years now since we started it. But I just wanted to ask if that included all that stuff. That's all I just wanted to ask. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Baxter, 21 Maple Street. With this bridge assessment down there on Maple Street, is any consideration under the foundation of the Lord Mill in on the evaluation, the erosion?
Guess we'll find out with the assessment.
It's a question
They have
because
historic, there's also historic preservation people in all of their, they either have one on staff or they subcontract with one. All of that is to be taken into consideration. That was all part
Boy
of.
and King, when they did the engineering for the dam removal, we're losing the foundation now
And that's
because they
historic.
rediverted the river. Rediverting the river has caused massive erosion on the buttresses of the bridge. Just my comment here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've heard that we're not gonna have the water department is gonna stay, precinct is gonna stay separate. They're not gonna be, the town's not gonna take it over. So that being said, we hired a public works director, I believe, was for the takeover of the public precinct and all this thing. See, we're not gonna take it over, what do we need him for?
Thank you, John.
No, wait a minute, I just want an answer. Because it's a bill of expense, and I don't, the department heads can take the paperwork and they wanna do their capital improvement, and they can give it to me. She can sort through it, that's what we used to do.
To who?
Kelley, the town administrator. And that's what we used to do, and we go right back to it. right now, the other day there, the loader hit the, I don't know if you gentlemen know about it, but hit the Parks and Rec building down there, the town barn, town yard. Somebody is gonna get hurt. These guys don't start paying attention to this equipment. That's number one. Number two, number three, the truck went over it had some kingpins put in it. It's got just over 100,000 miles on it. Completely ridiculous. They didn't grease it. That's why the kingpins went out. We've got a mechanic down there. Let's start taking care of this equipment. It's all brand new equipment, and that means get greased. And when they are documented every week when you come in, what truck got greased and didn't, a maintenance plan. And I don't believe you have it.
We'll look into it, John.
Huh?
We'll look into it for you.
What's that?
We'll look into it for you. Get a maintenance plan together.
The water department right now, we were looking towards maybe having to take it over this year. Some people step forward and they're trying to operate it like it should be operated. That doesn't mean the town won't have to eventually take it over. But right now, we're not going to be doing it this year or next year.
And that's true, Connie. But right now, if you eliminate the position, and then if you ever do decide to take it over, then you can have a public works director. That's all I'm saying. You know, when we start paying all these wages out here, that costs the taxpayers money.
Thank you, John. Anybody else?
I have another concern that I have to bring up to that, it's not just mine, it's a few people. Somebody that is on boards and committees in town has been indicted, I'm not gonna say any names. And we have a concern that if it was a police officer or anybody else, they would be removed from those boards until the investigation was done. We wanted to bring it to the selectmen's attention, and maybe you guys could discuss it, because I'm not even allowed on the board right now because I'm having a debate with the planning board over my property, and I'm not being indicted, so I have a concern there for myself as well, but other people have mentioned it as well, that there's a concern out there that they should be like having a leave of absence until the investigation is over.
Okay.
All right?
Town administrator's update.
Okay, so the first thing I have is you got 2 letters from Charter.
More bills?
More channels, let's see, I'm providing you this notification is effective on July 12th. WPXT LAFF multicast will be added to the basic starter TV group. Great. Getting one instead of getting rid of one. And then effective on July 1st or after, Olympusat is ceasing distribution of El Garage on Latino View. A slate will be placed on the channel to notify subscribers of the change. Well, so we're losing one and gaining one. Diane Smith from Brookfield sent me an email about whether the board would have any interest in applying for a TAP grant through New Hampshire DOT to help them develop expanded parking access to the Cotton Valley Rail Trail at its only crossing at Clark Road. So the TAP grants are Transportation Alternatives Program. So it's basically non-motorized. It's kind of for the trails and things like that. I told her that we had a lot on our plate this year, and it's a every other year grant. It has a $400,000 minimum. That's why she's asking us if we would have any interest in applying for a grant to potentially finish the trail from Route 16 to Turntable Park. I expressed concern that we finish trying to acquire Turntable Park before we try to finish the trail from 16 to Turntable Park, but she asked that I make the request to you. The grant, a letter of interest for the grant would have to be done by July 13th. And after talking to Stratford Regional Planning Commission, I'm not convinced that this is the only grant that would be available for that, and I'm not sure that it would qualify. But it's up to you. If you want me to try to apply for that grant by July 13th, there'd be some other stuff we have to figure out.
I think we
Delaying.
need to acquire Turntable Park first. That's been on our radar for 2 years. I mean, it's
Yeah, and I pinged, I think I copied you
I
and
did.
Counselor Kenny today because I pinged Chris Gamache, and he did get back to me, and he said he's meeting with the Historic Resources, I believe, next week. But he had sent me an email in April and told me he was meeting with them the next day. So I don't know if there's a red flag on this project or if there's some mitigating circumstances that they don't want to move forward and let us acquire it. If we can't acquire it, we at least should have a management agreement, which is what they call the leases now. So I really think we should finish up our project on the ownership of that or the leasing of it before we look at a grant for finishing the trail. But I told Mrs. Smith, she's on the planning board for Brookfield, and I told her I would bring it to you, so I mean.
Is she the chairwoman, or did they take a vote to
She's
send that
on
letter to us? Or?
she's the representative to Stratford Regional Planning Commission for Brookfield. She's on the Brookfield Planning Department, and then she's also on the TAC, Technical Advisory Committee for Stratford Regional Planning, so I think that's why it's on her radar.
So is she asking on behalf of the planning board, or is she asking on behalf of herself? Is she asking on behalf of the town?
I think she's asking on behalf of Brookfield that they've been talking about expanding the parking access to Cotton Rail Trail at Clark Road, and their project is too small, but if I apply and then roll them into ours, then maybe they could just come up with the matching funds. I mean, this would require matching funds too. I believe it's, what did she say, for $40,000 it would be 80, so it's a 20% match.
80-20?
Yeah.
Do we have a budget for that?
Not in 2018, but I suspect if we apply for the grant, if we only have to do the letter of interest by July, then the grant application probably isn't due till the fall, and it's probably a 2019 grant. Again, I'd rather get control of Turntable Park and figure out what our maintenance agreement is. Like, I just don't want to start down this road, apply for grant, do a lot of work on this, and then find out that, you know, we can't own it. We're only going to have a management agreement, so how much more improvement do we want to do if we're just basically leasing it? I mean, it's a great park, it's in our town, we use it all the time for
We
rec,
maintain it.
but how much do we want to improve it if we're not, you know, we've already been told that the building we put in there is basically, they can come any day and ask us to remove it. You know, when you build those, you build them.
Removable. Yeah, I would say we're gonna secure a Turntable Park before we move forward with any funding.
Okay.
How's the board feel about that?
Same.
Yeah. Okay. And I would just want to know if she's asking us on behalf of the planning board or just herself.
Okay.
Because I mean,
Do you want that question answered even though you're going to wait?
yeah.
Okay. The next thing is the status of the local emergency operations plan grant application. So I came to you, I think, at the last meeting and explained that our local emergency operations plan expired on May 22nd, 2018. Without a current LEOP, we cannot qualify for any disaster funding through FEMA until it's updated. So I fast-tracked, and you allowed me to, you know, kind of fast-track the grant. I got 3 proposals, even though it didn't go over $5,000. I got 3 proposals from companies that do that. Stratford Regional Planning does not have anybody certified to do it right now, but can get somebody certified. Their price was $5,000. The company that you've used in the past to do your hazard mitigation plan and maybe your last ELP was Maps, which is June Garno's company, and her price was $4,500. And then there was one other that I've used before in other towns, Hubbard Consulting, her price was $4,000. It's a 50-50 match, but we can use soft match money for my salary, John's, the chief's salary. We'll probably have to have 3 or 4 meetings over the summer, include some residents, different department heads. There's ESF's emergency support functions, so there's an ESF on communication, there's an ESF on sheltering, there's an ESF on resources, there's an ESF on planning. So different departments play leads in these roles and then take secondary roles and assist. So it's kind of there. It requires a threat matrix. How big a threat is a flood here. All kinds of documentation that we've done some of for the hazard mitigation plan. I would like your authorization to enter into a contract with Hubbard Consulting. They're the low bidder. We can certainly meet the soft match of $4,000. It might be a little more difficult to meet the soft match of $5,000. But all 3 of these companies are good companies and they're reputable, so I think that we should just go with the lowest bidder. I need you to commit to the contract with a consultant because part of the grant, I have to give them a timeline. I have to give them the contractor's name, when I think we'll start meeting. I believe that if we start to move this ball forward, then if there is actually a declared FEMA event and we're in the pipeline with it, we can make an appeal for funding. But right now, we're just expired. There's nothing on the burner, and it looks like we're ignoring it. So I just kind of want to move this forward.
Could we see their proposal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for getting 3
Okay, I got that one.
bids.
That's those 2. So this is the low bidder.
Yeah,
And they are out to handle.
and she's out of there right now.
So the grant packet, the application packet, how, do we get a copy of that as well, or?
Actually, HSEM is, you've got to do it all online now. You can't print the grant application out anymore until after you submit it. And HSEM is actually applying for the grant for us because there's all kinds of questions now about lobbying and debarment, and they've made it very difficult. I tried to go on and print off some of the pages, but I can't even get through. You have to answer all the questions before you can get to the next page. And then it's not a printable form. You just fill it out and then you get the packet after the fact. It's horrendous to use.
I don't like that.
That's the new state thing though. Now most of the state agencies, to apply for anything, you have to go into their software and do it in their system. Like, that's how they're saving on manpower. They're not entering anything, you're doing it all into their system. But they're not pushing anything down on us.
Yeah. Hubbard Consulting for $4,000. Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion to accept.
So moved.
I gotta think about this for a second. Can we,
Second, discussion.
I guess, for me, I would like to look over what the fine print is in the grant and be able to see what the stipulations are and everything beforehand. Is that something that we can do before we say just go for it, or?
I think we have to have the contract in order to apply for the grant.
Yeah, I can see if they have any samples that I can pull, but in the meantime, just so you know, if there's a FEMA declaration, we cannot apply for any funding without at least hiring somebody so it looks like we're moving the ball forward. I'll see what I can get them to say. I'm sure other people have entered grants and there's copies. I mean,
right.
I think it's just so they can
but that's going
offset
to
the
move this
cost of the
back
town
to
for these.
June 27th, so just so you know that if there is a declaration, we cannot apply for any FEMA disaster funding.
You want to wait till that's the grant review? If there is availability.
If there's availability, I would say if there's not, then can we have like a motion that if there's not, we accept it? If not, we can review it?
You can amend the original motion to reference now.
I guess I would amend it that if there's a review that we can look at beforehand, I would like to do that first before we okay it.
And if there's no review, to have the town administrator approve it.
I'll get something for you to review, because I don't want to make the decision if you're not comfortable with it. But
Okay.
I would strongly urge you not, because if we don't get in their timeline, we're moving back to December. We're going to go through the winter and all those winter storms with no ability to get any funding.
Right, I get it, and it's a shame that it lapsed when it did, but I don't like to be okay things without being able to really review it and look at it.
Okay.
That's all, especially when it comes to grants.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, may I speak to this exact agenda item? Just for the record, Ed Comeau, Brookfield. I also chair Brookfield's grant review committee. We began the initial review of that grant, which I have out in my car if you wanted a copy of it, the entire grant.
Okay.
It was not available on the website. We had the New Hampshire Homeland Security field director come and do a presentation on the grant so we can know the details of it, and it is important to look at it. It seemed like it was the state doesn't want any town to not be prepared. They want to make sure you have some type of plan. Ours expired very long ago. So they keep nudging us, you really need to get this done, you need to get it done. And it's important, not because of the fact that FEMA may or may not give the towns funding if something happens. The issue is you should have an operation plan if there's an emergency. So we're also, on Friday, going to go over the emergency operation plan and the hazard mitigation plan. And I just spoke to the chief because I thought it would be a good idea for the chief or both our towns to not cooperate financially with this, but just cooperate because we do share services. So I wanted to make sure the plan that we put together is somehow coordinated, at least so we know what we're going to have to rely on each other, believe it or not.
Well, generally, your police chief and your fire chief sit on that committee, and since you share our services, they would sit on your committee as well as mine, and they can be the liaison between the two. But I respectfully disagree with you on the important thing, because we have a claim into FEMA right now for the October storm last year that we will get $9,000 reimbursed of late overtime labor. So I believe, yes, I think the important thing here is that we have a continuity of government, a continuity of business plan. But I also think it's important financially that when you're laying out that kind of overtime on an unforeseen storm, you can get 75% of that money back from FEMA if it's a declared event. Right. So I don't know any town that wants to give up 75% of an unforeseen storm event that causes either irreparable damage or that kind of overtime.
Perhaps I didn't make myself clear. I did not mean to intend that you shouldn't have a plan or we were worried about the FEMA compensation. That's important too. But it's also important to read the details of the grant to see what and they're very willing to work with you. And they actually said to us that if we do not wish to take the grant, which there are 6 other towns in New Hampshire that refuse to take the money, they would help us through the process of completing it. He said it's very daunting to do it. Sometimes it pays to get an outside company to help, but it's important. So we are going to review this grant and the other one, the emergency management, on Friday at 8:30 a.m. So if you wanted to attend, you can also.
Where is that, at the town hall?
At the town hall, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm
move this
gonna,
to the 27th?
you wanna just wait until Friday and you take a look at his, or do you want me to try to get it as well?
No, I think I'll just go take the slip. Instead of duplicating efforts, I could just come over and check that out.
I'll give you a copy of it.
All right, great.
Bring it back to the board.
So the status of the L-chip window project, as you know, I put out the bids in February with an April deadline. We didn't get any bids. The L-chip told me to try to see if the person that did the original first half of the windows would be interested. I have a meeting with him tomorrow morning. I'm hoping he can get it done by December 31st, but if not, we can apply for an extension. I've already talked to them about that. So I'll know more after tomorrow on where we are with that. Somebody had asked me, I think at a previous meeting, how the payment plans for past due taxes were. We entered into 2 payment plans last year. And I just wanted to give you guys an update that we have collected $9,380 since November of last year when we entered into those payment plans. And that does not include the second issue tax or the first issue tax for this year. That's just in past due payments on those 2 properties. So that's $9,380 we had not collected in the previous 3 years.
Good.
Thank you.
I
That was a
had-
good plan you came up with.
I have some ambulance write-offs. I've obviously left off the names to protect their reputation. There are 13 that I'm asking you to write off that total $12,165.64. And then there's an additional $2,305.12 that I'd like to report to Experian because we have the Social Security numbers. The write-offs are, 2 letters were written by Comstar, 2 letters were written by me. There was no response. And in all those cases, we do not have a Social Security number, so we cannot report it to Experian. There is one, number 1 is was a hardship request. That person was hit by a car and gravely injured, and Geico carries the insurance for the other person. Geico did pay the person for the ambulance bill, but he has since been foreclosed on, lost his job because of the injury, and he is asking to have that waived as a hardship waiver.
So we're writing off $12,165.64.
Yes.
Accept the motion.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? That's okay.
I mean, it looks like these are all not like current, these are like back in 2017, so
Yeah, we can't get
as long as it's,
without the Social Security number.
Right.
Yeah, there's nobody to report it to, and in most cases, in a couple cases, even the letters I sent were returned because they have bad addresses, and I'm just trying not to let it get as out of hand as it was. I look at it I get a disposition report every month, and I write a second letter. If I don't get a response by the 3rd month, then I bring it to you to write off or report to Experian. And there's nothing saying that reporting it to the credit bureau will get it paid, but at least it might bring them in to have a conversation with us. If they need a hardship, I'm not opposed to bringing that to you, but I'm just trying to get people to communicate with us and have a reason.
All in favor of writing off the $12,165.64?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Send to Experian, $2,305.12. Motion to accept?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. So the last thing I have is I just wanted to give you an update. I think you heard Mr. Blackwood mention the building, the Parks and Rec. We have received our payment. So the quote for the work on that building was $7,500.
Yep.
The insurance company was allowing $6,286.05. So the building was originally built for us for free by a mason, but it was not properly built. You do a masonry building, the blocks should be offset, and they were stacked, and there was no rebar in the wall. So they would not, the insurance company, the quote included building the wall back properly, and it was the entire wall, and then it went around the corner to the door. So the insurance company only allowed $6286.05, and we had a $1,000 deductible. So the price was $7,500 to rebuild it, and we got a check for $5286.05. And the rest of it is coming out of Parks and Rec's budget.
The insurance company only required one quote?
They don't actually care. They sent their adjuster out, and he came up with $6286.05. I mean, we could have gotten more quotes, but it's not a situation where if we got a quote for 7,500 and 10,000 and 12,000, they would have given us, they would have thought 7,500 was good. They send their own adjuster out. He evaluates it, kind of like what they did with downstairs. That's why they made me get more prices. If you remember the flood downstairs, I got a price of $28,686. He thought that was about $4,000 high, so he made me wait all the time to get 2 more quotes, and the other 2 quotes came out to be $42,032 and $42,020. So they were $14,000 more. All of a sudden, my $28,686 looked awesome, and all it did was add a month onto the time that we were out of the basement of the building.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Building permit releases?
We had one to redo. We approved it at the last meeting, but it wasn't, property is held in a trust, and it wasn't made out that way, so we need to redo it.
Okay. Motion to accept releasing Thorn Hill Road.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Connie, that's what you can't use your stamp.
Oh, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a warrant number 24 for $2,308 for the Heritage Commission, $2,380 for the Heritage Commission. Motion accept?
Motion,
Yes.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Connie? All in favor?
Aye.
Treasurer's warrant 25, $3,439.20 for Parks and Rec. This is for depositing the fireworks.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And treasurer's warrant number 26. $476,819.54.
So we're making half a school payment because we hadn't collected enough taxes to make the whole school payment. So we'll pay the other half as the taxes come in.
Great. So we have to do a special request or just add it to the next?
It depends on when they come in. If we're doing a payroll next week, and we'll probably have to write a New Hampshire retirement check, so if we have to do a small accounts payable run, and we have the money, we'll stick it in there. If not, we'll do it with the next regular one for June. Tax money's coming in pretty well. I think it's due July 2nd, which is that Monday.
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
There's a Heritage bill and a Parks and Rec bill on the 01 warrant because there's credit card bills. The other 2 were their funds. That's the credit card bill, which gets paid out of 01.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question.
Thought you might be thinking that.
Yep, I was. Well, thank you.
I saw the wheels chugging.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That's this.
There you go. Thank you.
$400,000 should be spent. That's the
We
she
should-
doesn't have to.
Somebody should look at it. This is the transfer.
I put mine on in.
Board minutes is next. non-public minutes of May 23rd. Motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or changes? All in favor? Aye. Non-public 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9A, and 10. Motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have some sealed for you for that date as well.
And I have a sealed from that date as well.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
4, 4A, 8, 9, 11. Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Toni?
Aye.
Thank you. Always has my back.
Give you a little history lesson. Blizzard of '93. My father-in-law and I were standing out here sweeping the road, and we turned down Comeau, whatever you want to call it, for a storm.
Yes, you did.
2 towns, New Hampshire. Didn't need the money. The road was all bare by 7 o'clock in the morning.
It's true, I remember that.
Tell you a
It's on national
story.
news.
Tell you a story about a landslide in Greenville, New Hampshire, that has a budget of $1.8 million, and the landslide cost $1.8 million to stabilize. And if it hadn't been for FEMA, the house would have fallen into the impoundment.
Where was this?
Greenville, New Hampshire.
On snow removal? Was that where it was, or was it?
Flood.
Oh, flood, oh, that's a different story. I'm just talking about winter time.
I think you were in the papers, newspapers, on the front page.
Right.
The two of you standing right out here.
Yeah. My brother saw it on TV down in Washington DC.
Wasn't it?
All right, Selectmen's work session.
Right up to the, right up to the,
Anybody?
I don't have anything.
How's that?
That's right.
Then we will recess to a non-public session.
Back to the office.
Back to the office.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Per RSA 91A3.
91A3, I'm sorry, 91A-91-A:3, 2, and I think it's B?
It's A and C.
A and C.
I never wanted to say something.
Roll call to non-public.
Twombley, aye.
Avellani, aye.
Wallace, aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kelly, do you want to come back up? Are you going to come back into public session after you?
No, we'll adjourn at the next meeting.
Where was that?
I was.
Where you guys are.